You know, I saw the most astonishing thing in a tweet by Donald Trump the other day. Hunter Biden had a full Secret Service entourage. I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about Hunter Biden, his terrible, awful, atrocious son. And he had a rotating, like there were so many people needed to rotate 8-hour shifts. And he traveled. He was in South Africa traveling with like an entourage of like 24 Secret Service staff. And by the way, Anthony Fauci had the same thing. And Trump tweeted in both cases, let them pay their own security. And it was sort of, yeah, why is Anthony Fauci getting millions and millions of dollars worth of security? And I think about the Canadian context, that I saw a photo that Justin Trudeau put on Instagram of him looking very, I don't even know what the look was, but it was his first post-prime ministerial photo. And I'm not saying we should remove his security. I don't think we should, actually. But my God, is he ever backing up the truck and just shoveling in dough on the way out. What I'm referring to in his case is not Secret Service, because I think he should be protected. I mean, I dislike the guy, but I don't want harm to come to him. And there is obviously a risk. But oh my God, the money he's putting in his jeans on the way out the door. And who better to tell us about his not one, but his 2 pensions. He's the tender age of 53. But he's got 2 pensions for life. Joining us now to talk about it is my friend Franco Terrazzano from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Franco, we don't begrudge someone a pension, but the short amount of time he's worked and the astonishing numbers here, and not 1 but 2 pensions, it just shows the divide between how politicians take care of themselves and versus the rest of us. The numbers here, I'll let you say them, but I've been reading your press release on it. They're insane. Like they're almost 8 figures, if you take my meaning. Go ahead.
Oh, it's nuts, right? 2 taxpayer-funded pensions for life, totaling $8.4 million. 2 taxpayer-funded pensions, okay? So a prime minister, now I know, Ezra, you and most of your listeners know that members of parliament get these sweet, sweet, fat taxpayer-funded pensions. Well, prime ministers get a second pension in addition to that, okay? So Trudeau's MP pension, which he can start collecting at the age of 55, for his lifetime will total about $6.5 million. And then he also gets a prime minister's pension on top of that. So that's an additional payment that he can start getting at the age of 67. And that pension for his lifetime will total about $1.9 million. So you add up the $6.5 million for his MP pension and the $1.9 million for his prime minister's pension, and you're looking at a lifetime pension for Trudeau of 8.4 million smackers, and that is gross.
Yeah. And I mean, he's not done yet earning money, by the way. Wouldn't surprise me if he got some job with an NGO that was also fed by tax dollars. Like, I don't think he's going to run for office anywhere, but I would bet my bottom dollar that he will find some post-PM perch that is funded by taxpayers somehow or another. And by the way, all MPs, including the cabinet, they just ratchet up their pay automatically on April Fool's Day, don't they? I just can't believe they chose April Fool's Day. Like, that's too spot on the nose. If that were in a movie, the director would say, no. The studio would say, too obvious. No one would believe it. Literally, every year on April Fool's Day, these guys give themselves an automatic raise. Must be nice.
Yeah, well, welcome to Ottawa, hey, where taxpayers are both the punching bag and the punchline, right? So every April 1, while they're hiking your carbon taxes, hiking your alcohol taxes, they're also stuffing their pockets with higher pay. And it looks like this April 1 is no difference, okay? So the raise this year will range anywhere between an extra $7,600 to an extra $13,400. Now, after this raise, a backbench member of parliament, along with collecting dust in the House of Commons, will be collecting an annual salary of about $210,000. A minister's salary will be about $310,000. Now, I have no idea why a minister of finance who's running a $62 billion deficit would be getting a raise, but hey, it's Ottawa. and the prime minister's salary will jump up to about 420,000 grand, or about 6 times more than what the average Canadian worker makes. And Ezra, let me just add one more thing. This will be their sixth pay raise since the beginning of 2020. Pandemic for you, lockdowns for you, tax hikes for you, inflation for you, cost of living crisis for you, and this is their 6th pay raise, all taken from your pocket.
And give me those stats again for his food budget, because if I recall, Stephen Harper actually paid for his own food at 24 Sussex Drive. I'm going from memory now. What's the number for Justin Trudeau for his food? Was there some news about him, like a 90 grand a year thing? What was the stats on that?
It was almost, yeah. So in 1 year, it was about 80 grand is what the cost of Trudeau's grocery bill was to taxpayers. So you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, not essentially, the cost of Trudeau's household grocery bills in 1 year is more than what the average worker makes in an entire year, right? So, I mean, this is crazy.
Because I presume his ex isn't there anymore. So it's him, and I think he's got 2 or 3 kids, I can't remember. But a lot of his meals are out and about on the go. I don't even know how you spend that much. Like, he doesn't have a large family. Am I wrong?
Well, no, you're right. How do you spend that much? But, you know, it starts to make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense, but it starts to add up, the story here, when you look at other ways that the government spends your money, right? Like, remember the infamous trip of Governor General Mary Simon.
Oh my God, that was the craziest thing.
They took a week-long trip to Dubai, and it cost $100 grand for their airplane food.
That's so
Trudeau's week-long trip or 6-day trip to the Indo-Pacific back in 2023, $220,000 on airplane food.
I was on the plane yesterday. I went to Manitoba to cover a church fire, and I was sitting in the back, and you can order a meal. And I don't know if you know, Franco, you can order a first-class meal from the back of the plane. And they had this whole chicken dish for $20, and that's their first-class product. You can order in the back for $20. I don't know how you spend $110,000 on airplane food when I'm not saying Air Canada is going to win some awards for their food, but it's not bad. How do you go from $20 a meal to $100,000 plus for a single trip? Like, I don't know. Like, if you asked me to dream up a way, all I could come to is, well, maybe that extremely expensive bottles of wine, but even that doesn't add it up. I don't know. They're living in their own world. They're in their own world.
And then they try to hide the costs from you, right? So remember the Governor General's trip. They were in the House of Commons at a parliamentary committee, and they were saying, oh, we had eggs, we had omelets. It wasn't that extravagant. It was normal airplane food. Here's the problem. We had the receipts. Yeah. We went through everything they're eating. They're having stuff like beef Wellington with raju. Like, Ezra, I don't know about you, but you can't get beef Wellington flavored trips on an Air Canada flight, let alone beef Wellington. Yeah,
that's more like first class on some of those like Emirates or Qatar flights. But even there, I know it's not $100,000 for a flight, because those airlines are not that stupid. They'd be in business. I'll stop talking about airlines. I do fly a lot, so I just don't know how you, like, even a private jet. I'll stop talking about it. I just am baffled. But there's a commonality between the raises, the pensions, the food budget at 24 Sussex, the insane airplane catering. I'm sorry I got stuck on that. I'm thinking, how? But the common thread is there's this sort of condescension of, we're entitled to this, and don't even question. I don't know if you saw, there was this interesting exchange between Mark Carney and, of all people, Rosemary Barton of the CBC, who I don't think has ever asked a tough question of the government in her life. And she asked about some financial disclosure, and he said to her, he basically said, how dare you? Here's a clip of that. Look within yourself. Here, take a look.
The rules say that those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
Are you saying you are not open to any conflict of interest?
Yes.
Trump spent most of his life in the private sector. There's no possible conflict of interest in your assets. very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary. I mean, you start from a prior of conflict and ill will. I have served in the private sector. I have stood up for Canada. I have left my roles in the private sector at a time of crisis for our country. I'm complying with all the rules. Your line of questioning is trying to invent new rules. I'm complying with the rules that Parliament has laid out and the responsibilities of the Ethics Commissioner. And I will continue to comply with those rules.
So the first question was from Stephanie Levitz, who I think is with a Star now, and the second was from Rosemary Barton. They weren't gotcha questions. They were just, have you disclosed what are the conflicts? And he said, what possible conflicts could there be? Why are you implying ill will? Conflicts don't require ill will. If he owns a stake in a green energy company, then he shouldn't be in discussions or votes about green energy. That's not ill will. That's just the definition of a conflict. I mean, we know he has a position on China. We know he has a position on, he's against carbon. It's not ill will. It's just he's hiding what he has. And look at him lashing out there. Am I overreacting, Franco?
You know what I get the impression of watching that, hey? How dare the masses question me? How dare they question me? And, this all brings me back to like what we've seen over the last, number of years within the government here, whether it's the raises, whether it's these massive pensions, right? Whether it's these expenses, whether it's all the crazy taxes, regulations, all of it. All like this ruling class elite mentality here in Ottawa has to change, right? I truly believe Canadians are so fed up with this that we actually have to see a party leader come out and break ranks with all these other parties, right? Actually stick up for the working people who have a right to question their leadership and who are sick and tired of paying the bills for all of this extravagance.
And the tone there, I have come back to heal the country and you dare to question me. Yeah, they're reporters. They're going to question you every day. Just heads up. Maybe he wasn't used to that at the World Economic Forum where he served on the board. Boy, I tell you, we're in for a bumpy ride. Hey, I just heard you've got a new book and I see that it's coming out on Amazon on April 10th. So that's a couple weeks away from now, but I can still see a picture of the cover of it. It's called Axing the Tax, The Rise and Fall of Canada's Carbon Tax by Franco Terrazzano. Well, that's you. We'll have you back on to do a proper discussion of it, but give me the 30-second elevator pitch. Axing the Tax, The Rise and Fall of Canada's Carbon Tax. Give me a little bit of what we can expect in the book.
Yeah, well, you can pre-order it on Amazon. Just type in Axing the Tax, Franco Terrazzano. It comes out April 10th. And I wrote it for two reasons, okay? So number one, you already hear all the pro-carbon taxers, the green activists, trying to spin it like, hey, they are going to claim that the carbon tax is good policy. It's just that Trudeau bungled it or that he didn't communicate it well enough. Well, this book shows all the fatal flaws of the carbon tax, why it was always doomed to fail, and why the tax is always going to be a bad policy for Canadians who have to pay the bill, regardless of who's in charge or what they relabel the carbon tax. Ezra, the second reason I wrote this book is because Canadians have been fighting the elite establishment on the carbon tax since day one. Canadians never stop fighting, and they deserve this book because they deserve to know that all their hard work fighting the elites on the carbon tax is paying off.